Code Veronica X is the quintessential survival horror game, insomuch that, in order to complete the game, the player will have to survive the pure, unadulterated horror of fetch quests so tedious and convoluted that the game would be 47 seconds long without them. No horribly mutated monster, atmospheric musical score, or devious environmental details filled me with as much dread as entering a room and realizing I had to collect the 3 army seals a second goddamn time! Often, I wondered whether Code Veronica was actually a video game, or instead, some convoluted scheme perpetrated against us by the slinky Japanese as revenge for bombing them at Pearl Harbor. While there is a 1990s Steven Seagal movie-esque story wedged somewhere between the 500 MacGuffins you'll have to slog around, it's so laughably bad that you'll wonder what the qualifications are for being a writer at Capcom. I can only assume the game's producer gathered all the prospective developers into his dojo, then chose the lead writer based on who could perform the best calligraphy while clenching the brush between their butt cheeks. The narrative of Code Veronica begins with Claire Redfield outrunning the helicopter pilot from Godfather Part 3, who is so concerned that Claire might mess up his office a little bit that he shoots the entire fucking building to pieces. Strangely, despite Claire being so bent on escaping alive that she murders 20 men in cold blood, she refuses to shoot Billy D. Williams out of fear of being labeled a racist on Twitter. Somehow, this version of Claire reminds me of a clock, insomuch that, despite the passage of time, I still want to run my disproportionate black hands all around her face. And I'm not the only one. Mere minutes into the game, Claire encounters a cheap Leon Kennedy knockoff whose balls dropped so recently that there's a divot on the floor between his Skechers and stretch marks on the base of his inadequate shaft. This Dark Moon energy collar wearing, hot topic shopping, go-gurt guzzling, school shooting, patricidal punk is what Japanese game developers thought was cool back in the year 2000, and in a way, Steve's design and characterization fit perfectly. Code Veronica X represents a transitional stage in the Resident Evil franchise, where the environments shifted from fixed angle images to full-on 3D. The amount of enemies and ammunition skyrocketed, and hair started growing in all the most caressable places. So, keeping that in mind, including a character who joined the one-man Mile High Club after soiling the back of Claire's shirt with gelatinous glops of his gonad slop while she slept, released deadly gas when a cute girl stood too close to him, and eventually transformed into an anthropomorphization of his own erection, resplendent with a deepened voice, massive shaft, and gallons of hot green Incredible Hulk cum, is pleasantly proper and practically poetic. Opposing Claire and Steve in their epic quest to escape an island they never meant to visit in the first place is a cis-con soy boy who dresses like Char Aznable, but instead of a mask, he wears a wig and a butt plug. Alfred is so infatuated with melonious man meat that the only way he'd ever shoot on a woman's face is with his hunting rifle, and the only thing split wider than his personality is his disgusting gritty butthole that resembles an open jar of mayonnaise. Though, he's not all bad. The moment when Alfred discovers everything he learned from Tumblr was a lie is the comedic highlight of the entire franchise. His sister, Alexia, is a sleepy slut who turns into a half-finished Greek statue, then a flying thalidomide baby, for no particular reason. Speaking of no particular reason, Wesker appears in this game. You may recall him dying at the end of the original Resident Evil game, but apparently he got better. Wesker slaps Claire around like she burned Thanksgiving dinner, then jumps away like the $1 Million Man, back to his room to pump off while looking at his own reflection. In order to further pad out the length of the game, Chris Redfield appears and inches closer towards his lifelong goal of punching boulders by climbing some instead. His entire campaign reeks of sloppy seconds, and when the game's designers tired of rehashing the first half of the game, they decided to rehash Resident Evil 1 instead. The few new areas explored by Chris would have served better if played through by either Claire or Steve, and Chris only serves to provide a thematic connection to the antagonist by providing a slightly healthier example of incestuous siblings. His interactions with Wesker are completely non-interactive and may as well have not occurred in this particular game. Gameplay-wise, Veronica features some interesting twists on the formula. Capcom must have outsourced some of the coding to Puerto Rico, since the knife in Code Veronica is the best in the entire series. Dual-wielding weapons can target 2 enemies at a time, or completely miss the single enemy directly in front of you. Fortunately, the enemy AI is about what you'd expect from a Resident Evil game. Enemies include the Bandersnatch, who can grab your snatch from off-screen, a vaginal sperm newt whom you can completely skip past, a plain infiltrating tyrant whom is furious because he can't grab Claire's luscious shitter with his dragon fruit hands, generic zombies, this single bass in a tank, poisonous moth who sucks a succulent sweet off of Claire's butt cheeks, my penis after that horrific joking accident I don't like to talk about, and the inappropriately named Nosferatu. I mean, he's right there. His name should be, yes, Feratu. Overall, Code Veronica is an interesting game that is equally as enjoyable as your personal tolerance for constantly running from one side of the map to the other and back again juggling jewels and butt plugs because your character is too fucking stupid to shoot out locks. Well, that's it for today's video. If you liked it, you can subscribe, tweet about it, check out one of my paperbacks, ebooks, and audiobooks using the links provided in the description and the top pinned comment. Stay tuned for the next EmptyHero Versus episode where my Patreons will have chosen whether I'll take on some action games including, but not limited to, Bayonetta, Killer is Dead, and Enslaved, or a block of Zelda games including, but not limited to, Majora's Mask and A Link to the Past, or you can break out your art supplies, chocolates, and panties and send me an extra sultry Valentine's. Until then, thanks for your time and goodbye!